Hello clan fans, welcome back to Gen Recaps. I just finished watching episode 6 of season 6 of Outlander, and boy, that was a very intense ending. It's interesting because I knew it was coming, but at the same time I was not expecting to see how it played out the way it did. We did actually see a death at the end of the episode, and just how it happened, we are left in the dark. We will probably find that out in the next 2 episodes. But yeah, let us delve into episode 6 of season 6 of Outlander. And this episode is called The World Turned Upside Down. Interestingly, not a Hamilton reference. I was hoping, but not this time. So this episode was about a little over an hour, and we actually got quite a bit of story in here. We see that the church has been officially finished, and Roger is preaching a sermon to the residents. And after the sermon, Claire, Jamie, Brianna, and Roger are talking about how they haven't seen the McNeils for a while, and I actually didn't really realize who they were until they showed at the beginning of the episode that we saw them during quarter day. I sometimes miss details. And so yeah, they haven't seen them for a while. They're a little concerned. So what happens is Claire, Brianna, Lizzie, and Malva go to check on them, and they find that all of them, the parents, the children, are dying from an illness. This scene was very sad because when they showed the clip originally, I thought maybe there was a chance they were at least going to save the children, but it turns out they also perish, which, that scene was very sad. And there is a baby that dies in Malva's arms, which I'm not saying that's a foreshadowing thing, but maybe? Claire is trying to figure out what is possibly killing off the residents of the Ridge, and she is studying one of the germs, and it turns out it is dysentery, like it was in the book. And she explains to Malva what it is. She shows her the germ under the microscope. You all know what I'm going to say here. Claire, why did you do that? But yes. So dysentery continues to spread throughout the community, and unfortunately Claire also happens to fall ill. We don't know for a fact that it is also dysentery, it's just the assumption, but her symptoms end up being different, and she thankfully does make it out alive. But while she is ill, Malva is getting suspiciously close to Jamie. And at one point while Claire is having just kind of like a moment to wake up, she sees like a blurry Jamie at the window drinking a bottle of whiskey, and then Malva comes up behind him and kind of like rubs his back, and just like in that moment Claire blacks out. So that is all she remembers. She assumes it's a hallucination. She also sees this after she has a dream, which included a storm. She saw a snake, and then she saw a pair of hands dropping her heart while it was beating. And she doesn't quite know what to make of it. But yeah, that dream was really eerie. And interestingly, she does later on compare it to the dream that she had when after she miscarried with Faith, and she saw the birds, and she saw blue, which meant healing, and this was like the complete opposite of that dream. So she doesn't quite know what to make of it yet. However, this is actually interesting. While Jamie and Malva are talking at one point, Jamie mentions that he got bit by a snake, and Malva continues to talk about how one of the fisher folk got bit by a snake, and it's just interesting that they mention the snakes. So, clue number one there. The whole situation with her getting close to Jamie, it's meant to be her version of comforting him while he's grieving, but at the same time, she has a bad, evil plan brewing in her head. Claire recovers from her illness, and this other detail that comes from the book was Claire gets her hair like cut very short, and apparently, like Roger explains, Mrs. Bug and Malva did that while she was having a fever because they thought at the time that would reduce the fever, which I am guessing that is not effective. But yeah, so Claire has very short hair now. I don't know if she was awake in the book when it happened. She is embarrassed, and Bree was not too happy about it either, is what Roger explains, but Bree makes the most of it, and she finishes like making here's Claire look better. And in a way, it kind of reminded me of when Claire first traveled, when she had the shorter 40s style. I mean, it ended up being shorter than that, but just kind of a little bit of a throwback to that almost. So I don't know entirely why she's humiliated, except I guess at this point she got used to having the long hair. So she's humiliated, but Jamie comforts her and says that she's still beautiful. Oh, unfortunately, after the ridge has healed from all that has happened with the dysentery, the Christies come to visit right before Jamie and Roger are about to leave. They are going to go meet with the Sons of Liberty, and Jamie is going to speak on their behalf, but they get stopped by the Christies because Malva has news. Who saw that one coming? So yes, in private, they speak with Claire and Jamie. Although, we say private, but Mrs. Bug was listening in. I don't know why they left the door open. Why didn't they close the outside door? Mrs. Bug is clearly a gossip, like, gosh. Anyway. So yes, Malva is with child, and she will not say who the father is until she's in Jamie's presence, and once they are, Malva points at Jamie and says that the child is his. There it is. So Claire is in shock from this, and unfortunately Malva goes on to continue explaining that what happened was they had intercourse while Claire was out of it and in the room she was laying in, and she describes the moment that Claire saw with her blurry vision, and this unfortunately confirms to Claire that that moment did happen, but she still doesn't entirely believe that Jamie would be unfaithful to her, because earlier on they actually talked about how the quality that they respect or admire the most with each other is that they are faithful. But this has shaken Claire's beliefs a little bit, even if she doesn't fully believe it. So Malva just, she keeps claiming that it is Jamie's, and at one point Claire slaps her and she walks out, and Jamie is trying to persuade Tom and Alan that the child is not his, they never laid together, but Malva is insistent. But yeah, Tom wants to write up a contract saying that Jamie will provide for the child and name the child as his heir, but Jamie, he just tells them to leave. Honestly, that was a good choice. But yeah, so if the Christies and the Frasers did not have tension before, here it is. So Jamie goes to find Claire in the stables, and this moment is very powerful between them because Claire is upset. She's still processing what's happened, what's come to fruition here, but at the same time, she believes that Jamie had nothing to do with this, but she needs to know from him that what Malva has said isn't true. And he does tell her that there is something he needs to tell her, and she feels ill at this. However, he explains that the one time he was truly unfaithful to her, where he gave his body and soul to somebody else, was with Mary McNabb. And in that moment, I'm like, wait, he didn't tell her that yet? I honestly thought he would have mentioned that, because she knew about other things that had happened while they were apart. But maybe because this was a moment he wasn't particularly proud of, he hadn't brought it up with her. But yeah, he just explains that's the only time that he was truly unfaithful to her. But under the circumstances, she understands that it was when she wasn't there, and he needed someone before he went off to prison. But just to hear just that moment between them where he's finally confiding this to her, and she realizes that he is an honorable man, and if the child had been his, he definitely would have claimed the child, no matter how the child was brought into the world. And that's true. He told her about Willie. He was honest about that. And she knows him. But yeah, just that moment, that reconciliation between them was just very powerful. And this was the moment where, if you guys remember from the trailer, she's telling him, like, none of them, she, Brianna, Roger, Jemmy, are not supposed to be there, but they're there because she loved him, and she loved him more than the life that she had, and she thought the same of him. And just, honestly, just a beautiful scene, because it just goes from the uncertainty of what happened with Jamie to him explaining to her his one time he was unfaithful, to them making up and trusting each other again, and just that moment just played out so beautifully. While Jamie and Roger are away during the Sons of Liberty thing, it's about 2 months, and Claire unfortunately has become an outcast on the ridge, and we can all thank Mrs. Bug for that one. Gossiping evil woman. Like, seriously, this woman is probably treated with nothing but the best kindness from the Frasers, and the second she hears gossip, turns on them like that. Frustrating woman. But yes, so unfortunately, Brianna's doubts are also kind of at play here with Jamie. Brianna is just unsure because Frank had an affair under her nose and she didn't know about it at the time. And Roger tries to assure her that that was a different situation and Jamie would never do anything like this. But Brianna still has some doubts, and I don't know if that's going to come into play more, but it is kind of sad to see that because of what happened with Frank, she doesn't trust Jamie's honesty here. But yeah, I don't know if it's gonna shake their relationship too much. So after the 2 months that Jamie and Roger are away, they return, and Jamie just kind of explains what happened during the Sons of Liberty meeting, and he has proclaimed that he is a man of liberty. And basically we're just gonna see what happens after that, I guess. I don't know if we're gonna see too much in the rest of the season with where he stands with the revolution, but At least we know at this point that Jamie is on America's side. And definitely didn't play out the way I thought it was going to, but we'll probably see more of it at least beginning of season 7. At one point before Jamie and Roger had returned, Claire did go to speak with Malva about her pregnancy, and she was trying to tell her, like, she doesn't have to lie that it's Jamie's and she can be honest. She wanted to really help her and give her a second chance. However, the second Alan steps out and tells Claire to leave because he does believe she's a witch, Malva just turns on her. She's like, "It's true, I've seen her brewing potions. I've seen her bring the dead back to life." It's like, Malva, you snake. But yeah, Claire realizes at that point that there is just no point in trying to help Malva. She will do as she pleases, and it's just the way it is. Well, after the 2 months have passed, Claire is in her surgery, and it's lonely there because nobody is coming for treatment because of the rumors that have spread about Malva and Jamie. So Claire takes a moment to breathe, but then she hears Lionel in the back of her head. Dude never goes away. And unfortunately, she goes back to doing the ether. And she sees Malva walking towards the surgery right before she puts herself to sleep. And while she's sleeping, now I truly believe this moment was a dream, just an ether dream. She sees Malva sitting over her in the surgery, and Malva tells her, like, "Oh, you're trying to hide away from the problems using the ether, using your black magic." And tells her that she wants Jamie and she'll take him and everything that Claire has ever had. Calls her ugly, calls her old, all that. Basically, all your insecurities wrapped up into one. And Claire is angry and lashes out at Malva and holds a scalpel up to her and says, "If you do not leave my family alone, I will kill you." And in that moment, fades to black. And for a second, I knew this wasn't going to be the end, but for a second I was like, wait, did they end the episode there? Thank God, no. So what happens is Claire wakes up in the surgery. She's alone now. And I did see this moment coming. She goes to the garden, and while she's there, she spots Malva, no longer alive, lying in the garden with her throat slit, and she immediately tries to save the baby. Unfortunately, because Malva has been dead for a while, the baby is no longer alive. Yeah, just that moment. Claire is just so distraught over what has happened here. And there are many reasons for it, because A, Claire never wanted Malva dead. Claire truly just doesn't ever want to kill anybody. This moment that she saw her threatening Malva must definitely have been a dream, because you can hear it in the voices. There's just like this reverb going on. Nothing's clear. You could say Claire was out of it, but it definitely was a dream, especially if you guys know the book details. But yeah, she is distraught that Malva is dead, but also Ian had claimed that he and Malva had laid together, and he believes the child could be his. So Claire could also be sad at the fact, if this was Ian's child, it's another child that he's lost. And another possible reason why she could also be upset about this is when she tried to save the baby, it might have reminded her of when she lost Faith. and it's always a painful memory that lays in the back of her head. And anytime she sees a dead child, it probably reminds her of that. Anytime she's unable to save somebody, she feels like she's failed. So just this raw moment for Claire. She's just been through so much, and in this episode, just it all comes blowing up. But yeah, just you hate to see Claire suffer literally for doing nothing. She just wants to save people, she wants to help people, but she keeps being punished for it. And just all of this is eating at her now. And of course, we do not know who killed Malva. Book readers do, but shows can change things. But probably will follow the source material here. We definitely can say it was not Claire. It was not Claire. The show would not take that route. And we know she was having a nightmare under the ether. This moment only proves that her escape that she's used all this time ended up being pointless. The dreams still got to her. And maybe this will help her realize that this is not an escape. This is not something I should do. It won't help. What I need to do is confront my feelings, what I am going through, and talk to somebody about it maybe. But yes, this was definitely a wake-up call for Claire, and we are going to see how that plays out in the next 2 episodes. And yeah, we're definitely going to have to see what happened with Malva at some point. So while Claire was out, somebody must have come up to her, stopped her from entering the surgery, and we probably believe it's Alan, because he does not want Malva associating herself with Claire. It was interesting earlier in the episode when he actually left Malva alone when she said she wanted to stay and help with Claire while she was ill. He didn't say anything. He just quietly left, which was weird. He accepted that, if he's so bothered by all of this. And maybe because it was that Claire was ill and that she couldn't do any harm. I don't know. Alan is a very mysterious person, and I still feel like we need to learn more about him. But we probably will in the next 2 episodes. But he definitely has a motive here, and I don't remember if the child was actually going to be his. If that is what happened in the book, I don't quite recall that, but that is another possibility. I also wanted to bring up one quick moment in this episode that made my heart so happy. Because Brianna really wanted to tell Claire about her second child, and she hadn't before Claire fell ill. So I was wondering if they were going to make a very emotional scene with that. It wasn't like emotional. It wasn't like Claire was laying there and Brianna was like, "Mama, you have to live. If you don't, you won't get to see your second grandchild." Like, it wasn't anything like that. But it was actually a happy moment, which in a way I appreciate that more, because it became good news for Claire after being so ill for a week. Brianna tells her that she was afraid she was going to die, and that she needs her, and her second grandchild needs her. And just Claire's happiness in that moment was so nice. And I just love seeing Claire and Brianna's bond more now. Like, we got to see a little bit of it in season 2 and 3, but clearly they were going through the revelation that Brianna's real father was a Highlander from the 18th century, and then the next time we see them, they're trying to find him, and Claire's considering going back, so we don't really get to see like their mother-daughter bond fully in those 2 seasons. And then when she returns to the 18th century, it's kind of like she's home. She gets to be herself. And we get to see her and Claire as if they had always been in the 18th century together. And I just love seeing that. I love seeing that they are connected now. And it's just a beautiful mother-daughter bond. And I cannot wait to see more of that. Another thing to bring up is that Claire noticed that her symptoms were not that of dysentery. She actually goes to see Tom Christie after her illness has subsided, and she explains to him what her symptoms were, and he actually had very similar symptoms. So she realizes they both did not have dysentery, and she wants to have a fecal sample from him to see what it could have been, but he gets offended and he escorts her home at that point. But here we are seeing that something else got a hold of them, and this actually is in the book that no, it was not dysentery. They ended up having a different, or at least a different strain from the disease. And if you guys remember earlier in the episode when Malva was looking at the germ in the microscope, I will leave it at that. What a complicated family. And what a complicated woman Malva is. Like, you want to like her because she does have a side to her that can be caring, but she doesn't know how to, like, understand that side of her. She has been through abuse. She has been told all her life that her mother was a witch and that she could be one as well if she goes down a certain path. And I believe it is also a fact that Malva is not Tom's daughter. She is Alan's half-sister because her mother was with Tom's brother while he was at Ardsmuir. So this alone has made her an outcast within the family. The truth is not known amongst anyone else but them, but this is partly why Tom treats her the way he does, or treated her the way he did. And because of this, it has caused her to basically learn how to look out for herself, but in the wrong way. And it causes her to want to find, like, the happiness that Claire and Jamie have. But unfortunately, she thinks the only way to get that is to ruin their relationship. And she just does not go about it in the right way at all. But at the same time, you have to pity her because she never really had a chance to learn what love truly is. And she was shown kindness from Claire, from Jamie, from almost everybody on the ridge, but it wasn't enough, or it was too late for her to truly learn what love is. And she never just learned how to love somebody and care for them in return. She can fake it. That much she could do, but just never learned how to be sincere. She became manipulative, and she would do anything and stop at nothing to get what she wanted. So, in that way, her character never stood a chance really to have a happy life. And what's another sad thing about her death? It's to the point where it's too late for her to turn anything around. This is how she died. She died being dishonest. She died turning people against her, and it's just a sad ending to her character, really, in the end. So in the next episode, it looks like Tom and Alan are suspicious of Claire because her clothes are covered in blood. She has a knife. They think she killed Malva. Although, honestly, they're gonna see that she tried to save the... Whatever, they see what they want to see. So yeah, Claire is gonna deal with that. They're gonna try to figure out who could have done this to Malva. And for some reason, Ian asks Lizzie where the Beardsley twins are. Like they had something to do with this? I don't remember that. Was that a thing in the books? I don't know what they would have, how they would have played in this, because we never saw them the whole episode. I don't know. Yeah, we'll find out. We'll find that out. Oh boy. This season has really been a roller coaster of all kinds, which honestly, that's every season of Outlander. That's why we watch, right? Yeah. So please let me know what your guys' thoughts were on this episode. What did you think about what happened with Malva and Jamie? What did you think about Malva's death? Who could have killed her in the show terms? Because as we know, sometimes things change around. Yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts on this episode and what you think will happen in the next 2 episodes. I am afraid for Claire, because I believe she will be getting in trouble for this, even though she didn't do it. And I think it becomes a matter of life or death for her. This woman cannot get a break. Okay, so yeah. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are, and I will see you for episode 7. Bye!